Hi guys, welcome to Token Economics 101 lecture. This is Shou from BNB Chain, handling token economics research and advisory. Today, I share with you guys some ways of thinking when designing tokens. Because of the wide variety of token designs available or possible, it is not very useful to look for past examples of products that are similar to your product and then copy their token economics. The important thing is to find a general framework by finding abstract commonalities from concrete examples. So let's get started one by one. So today's overview. What we will talk about today is token design mental model and abstract framework. What we will not talk about today is token economics dedicated to specific categories, comparison of each staking model, and concrete examples. You will get points to keep in mind when designing tokens, how to judge for yourself the pros and cons of a design, product design necessary for effective use of tokens. The current situation around token economics. So for better or for worse, no one has found the perfect token economics yet, especially the products on the application layer like game, including crypto OGs, VCs, and developers. All of them still do not know the perfect token economics. So everyone has a chance to find it. Currently, new projects use less speculative token economics, or big players even do not issue fungible token. They use only NFT or stablecoin to avoid their reputational risks. This is mainly because big players do not have to issue tokens to raise funds. Next, what is token economics? The essence of GameFi is the competition for the right to issue currency. I write GameFi, but it's not limited to game, but also DeFi and blockchain as well. There are three types of games. Those that delegate the right to issue currency to users, those that work as a central bank taking control of the issuance right, and those that delegate the right to issue currency to smart contracts. So the first one is the game master does not intervene in the process of users generating NFTs and tokens by using NFTs. So the supply of token, the supply of tokens increase in an unregulated manner. Major P2E games like Axie, Infinity, and Steppen in the past are mainly categorized into one. The benefit of this category is the explosive growth. As all of you know, when this game gained traction, the number of DAU and also the price of the token increased quite a lot in the short term. But the concern is it's uncontrollable. Since this game delegate the right to issue token to users, that no one can control the issuance of token. So everyone come to the game and play and issue the token. And most of them keep selling the token. So the price of the token fluctuates quite a lot and it causes pump and dump. And then token supply will be also chaotic. So chaotic means it doesn't mean it's always increases, because the game start studios also introduce the burning mechanism. So sometimes the token get burned quite a lot, but it's uncontrollable. So it's very chaotic. But in the long run, the supply curve tends to be exponential. So it means always increase and increase. So it cannot avoid hyperinflation. And category 2 is that game master continuously determines the number of tokens to be issued per unit of time. So whether it is fixed or not, the game master has a right to control it. Early P2E was not sustainable, as I mentioned. So this category increases the degree of intervention in the game economy by the teams, so that the game would not become speculative too much. However, the elimination of speculative nature presents another problem. The game must attract users purely through the fun of the game. So the benefit of this category is its stability, right? So because the team can always have a control of the issuance, the price of token and also the issuance, the supply of the token tend to be stable, but it's highly centralized. So some users do not like centralization. And also the teams can always change their rules, sometimes without notice it. Sometimes without letting users notice it. So the token supply tend to be very arbitrary. And supply curve is flexible. It can increases block by block, or if the teams impose some tax on their token withdrawal, the supply curve can be decreasing as well. But it totally depends on teams. So it's quite centralized. And third category is the game master writes the number of tokens issues and how they will be distributed in smart contracts, which are immutable. So this model has a fixed emission schedule like Bitcoin. For example, it provides certain incentives to liquidity providers. The benefit is immutability. Even teams cannot upgrade the smart contract, but it means it's not flexible. It's fixed, and it's extremely difficult to foresee what can happen in the future. But if it's immutable, no one can change the smart contract and also emission schedule. Token supply is, as mentioned, systematic, and supply curve is also as designed. And fourth category, this is, so although not observable now, a dynamic and immutable issuance mechanism will emerge in the future, in which the game master writes rules in smart contract to change rules, thereby changing the number of tokens issued with the flexibility of a central bank. So the benefit of this category is its transparency, but it's very difficult to make rules to control rules, right? And token supply will be dynamic. So ideally, this mechanism observes the activity in the game economy and then flexibly change the issuance and also burning mechanism. The distribution of currency issuance rights is like a spectrum with myriad variation between the two ends. For example, some game masters do not impose direct restriction on the number of token issues, but they do impose restrictions on the supply of NFTs and the number of times they can use them, called durability. So in some games, you can use the NFT only for 100 times. So this can indirectly control the issuance of token. When you design token economics, you can always ask yourself, who has the right to issue tokens in your system, whether this is users or team or smart contract. So there is no clear priority or superiority. You can design as you want, but to understand what you're doing is very important. Okay, next, let's talk about effective use case of tokens in the past. In 2020, Uniswap was dominant, but it wasn't perfect for stablecoin pairs. Stablecoin is like a USDC, USDT, BUSD, or WBTC, SBTC, or ETH, SDETH, like such kind of pairs, because of the formula underlying. The blue line is the curve, and the purple line is Uniswap. And if it's closer to the red line, the swap ratio is better, generally, especially for trader, not a liquidity provider. But anyway, you don't have to be so familiar with this formula. But important thing is, at the time, Uniswap was dominant, but still not perfect for some cases. And then Carve has perfect market fit for stablecoin, but the TVL was relatively smaller than Uniswap at the time, around this moment. So Carve had a good potential, but needed bootstrapping to acquire network effects. CRV token attracted more liquidity. So more liquidity, more trading volume. More trading volume, more fee paid to CRV stakers. So in CRV token economics, 50% of trading fee goes to CRV stakers. CRV staker means that those who locked CRV for a certain amount of period, like 4 months or 1 year or 4 years. Solving cold start programs and making positive feedback was available thanks to the CRV token. So, but CRV had a potential to have 1 billion TVL, even without tokens. But CRV shortened the time to reach that point. 90% of success depends on the product and 10% on the tokens. So if your product relies on tokens too much, it's a red flag. So ideally, the products that are useful without tokens use tokens to accelerate growth. So in the next section, I will talk about this deeper. And also, even if the product is good, it doesn't necessarily mean there is alignment between product and token. So let's talk about it at the next section. In this section, let's talk about network effects one by one. So first topic is product design and token economics. The existence of token is to make the product sustainable. For early stage products, for example, the goal is for user-driven content and liquidity to accumulate in the product and increase the convenience or value it can provide to users. For late-stage products, the goal is for the product to leave the hands of the team and be governed by the community like a publicly traded company. Network effects are a critical concept in product design and token economics for the following reasons. Products should be designed to accumulate value through network effects. Token incentives should promote the network effect or be used to overcome anti-network effects, which cause users to churn and hinder network growth. The value a product provides can change over its life cycle. A measure that induces users to take a specific action by granting tokens falls under two above, but one must be satisfied to implement two effectively. Yet, depending on the product design, tokens will not work well. This is because restrictions exist on what tokens can promote. Effective token economics follows good product design. So it means you have to design product first so that the product can be aligned with token. And then you can put tokens to incentivize users to behave as you want, as you want them to. So regarding the above, as the number of users increases due to the network effect, the product utility also changes. So for example, in the games, when the number of users is 10K, the value is attached to the gameplay itself. So it means the game should be fun. When 100K, the value is attached to the community through the game. So meaning users log in the game to communicate with other users or make friends. And when 1 million, the value is attached to the self-branding in the game, meaning you will buy the digital skin, for example, to show yourself to others. NFTs, which are just JPEGs, are traded at high prices because people recognize the records on the public blockchain and share the image tied with them. So value is not created because there is a community. The community is built because of the set of people who find that value in common. This is precisely the network effect. A JPEG becomes more valuable as the number of people recognizing it increases. But let us know that our attention is also a finite resource. So in this section, let's talk about token use. So the current programs, many projects have structures that do not satisfy product design and token incentive in the previous section. For example, the product's value is not based on account interactions, and token incentives do not facilitate the interaction. A typical example would be our staking system, whereby locking in 100 tokens would earn you 105 tokens a month later, or tokens earned just for playing the game. In this example, the user does not add any value to the product. They just did not sell any tokens. This approach also leads to our chicken game, forcing the user to act in a speculative manner. A common practice at GameFi is to simply play the game and receive tokens. In this case, you need to be clear about what value you expect your players to bring. This is because users who are simply playing our game often do not add any value. For example, if your game is about communication, you need a certain number of users. So it makes sense to give tokens to users who stay online. In other words, it is important to clarify within the team what the aim is behind this, rather than simply to increase DAUs. Otherwise, you will simply be draining tokens and burning through your day-to-day working capital. So why we use public blockchain? So we need to think about it once again now to compete with Web2 game giants with limited resources. So public blockchains are in many respects highly inefficient systems. However, being public, namely permissionless and verifiable, it is open to innovations from anybody and has a population large enough to create a network effect. Before designing token economics, we must find an appropriate product structure that can take advantage of the network effect that continue to be encouraged by the public environment. For example, so let's see the expansion process network effects. For example, the utility of the telephone does not change from phase to phase. An increase in telephone subscribers increase the number of people you can contact via the telephone. The same applies to a simple AMM, where the utility is liquidity or small slippage, regardless of the phase. As in the case of AMM, liquidity does not increase indefinitely due to the positive feedback. This is because the slippage of the Uniswap V2 type AMM is determined by this formula. 2 multiplies the trade size divided by pool size. So to provide the same utility, the pool size only needs to increase indefinitely if the trade size increases indefinitely. In other words, the upper limit is formed by the nature of the product and the external environment. So this is quite informative for game developers as well. What kind of value it can give and where is the limitation of each value? So for example, as I mentioned in the previous section, so when the number of users is quite relatively small, maybe the value is based on the group. If it's a medium size, it's a community. And if it's a larger size, society. So you need to think of in which phase, what kind of value you can provide and what is needed. What kind of user's behavior you want to move from phase 1 to phase 2 and from phase 2 to phase 3. There must be difference. And you need to figure out what kind of behavior is desirable for you, for developers. And then you can incentivize users to behave in this way, in such a way. So in this section, let's talk about token use. So the current problems. Many projects have structures that do not satisfy product design and token incentive in the previous section. For example, the product's value is not based on account interactions, and token incentives do not facilitate the interaction. A typical example would be a staking system, whereby locking in 100 tokens would earn you 105 tokens a month later, or tokens earned just for playing the game. In this example, the user does not add any value to the product. They just did not sell any tokens. This approach also leads to a chicken game, forcing the user to act in a speculative manner. A common practice at GameFi is to simply play the game and receive tokens. In this case, you need to be clear about what value you expect your players to bring. This is because users who are simply playing our game often do not add any value. For example, if your game is about communication, you need a certain number of users. So it makes sense to give tokens to users who stay online. In other words, it is important to clarify within the team what the aim is behind this, rather than simply to increase DAUs. Otherwise, you will simply be draining tokens and burning through your day-to-day working capital. So why we use public blockchain? So we need to think about it once again now to compete with Web2 game giants with limited resources. So public blockchains are in many respects highly inefficient systems. However, being public, namely permissionless and verifiable, it is open to innovations from anybody and has a population large enough to create a network effect. Before designing token economics, we must find an appropriate product structure that can take advantage of the network effect that continue to be encouraged by the public environment. For example, so let's see the expansion process network effects. For example, the utility of the telephone does not change from phase to phase. An increase in telephone subscribers increase the number of people you can contact via the telephone. The same applies to a simple AMM, where the utility is liquidity or small slippage regardless of the phase. As in the case of AMM, liquidity does not increase indefinitely due to the positive feedback. This is because the slippage of the Uniswap V2 type AMM is determined by this formula. 2 multiplies the trade size divided by pool size. So to provide the same utility, the pool size only needs to increase indefinitely if the trade size increases indefinitely. In other words, the upper limit is formed by the nature of the product and the external environment. So this is quite informative for game developers as well. What kind of value it can give and where is the limitation of each value? So for example, as I mentioned in the previous section, So when the number of users is quite relatively small, maybe the value is based on the group. If it's a medium size, it's a community. And if it's a larger size, society. So you need to think of in which phase, what kind of value you can provide and what is needed. What kind of users behavior you want to move from phase 1 to phase 2 and from phase 2 to phase 3. There must be difference. And you need to figure out what kind of behavior is desirable for you, for developers. And then you can incentivize users to behave in this way, in such a way. In this section, let's talk about inflation deeper. Understanding inflation is critical when designing token. So first of all, inflation itself is neutral, not necessarily bad and good. This is also the case for deflation or negative sum game. Inflation in crypto acts as a levy on those who hold tokens and do not participate in staking. By imposing conditions for participation in staking, you can create artificial pressure to transfer the token share among holders. The simplest form is our token share transfer from non-stakers to stakers. You can apply this mechanism to introduce a well-designed complexity into the game economy. For example, suppose both FTs and NFTs are required for efficient participation in staking. In that case, token shares will gradually migrate from those who have either FTs or NFTs to those who have both FTs and NFTs and are participating in staking. The inflation rate determines the speed of this transition. The higher the inflation rate, the faster the transition. Therefore, when choosing the inflation curve, we must be clear about whom we want to favor. For example, the desired inflation curve will differ depending on whether we want to favor initial or current holders. So let's look at this graph. If you want to favor current holders and then shift the token share from past holders to current holders, you can do so by maintaining a high inflation rate. This is simply because the current users can get the higher issuance rate. Conversely, you could reverse all the adopters who took the risk and held onto their tokens in the early days by using a square root type of issuance. It shows a curve similar to token supply with a halving, such as Bitcoins. It is also possible to fix the emissions per unit block and not favor any particular entity. So let's look at the inflation control. The supply curves in the previous section make it clear that it is impossible to control inflation rate with a linear band against a quadratic supply. Suppose that the supply of tokens you have designed grows in line with the quadratic curve. To keep inflation rate down, you ensure that each user must consume tokens regularly, or they will be able to participate in a token minting. Would this keep inflation rate down? It depends on the amount of tokens the user must consume. For example, suppose the number of tokens in circulation increases quadratically, blue line, but the number of tokens consumed or taxed increased linearly, the red line. In that case, the total amount of newly supplied token will still increase quadratically, green line. So as a matter of course, in order to control the quadratic growth of tokens, the token consumption or taxation imposed on users must also be quadratic. Otherwise, the curve of new tokens in circulation cannot be linear. So this is why I said in an earlier section that in a type of token design that gives our user the right to issue tokens, the token supply will be chaotic in the long run, even with a burn mechanism in place. Here, the category 1. Let's talk about the difference between token economics and the crypto economics. So it's important to mention the difference between token economics and the crypto economics. This is because there will be more application-specific blockchains and layer 2 in the future, and everyone who is developing a product may eventually design a blockchain ecosystem as well. So first of all, token economics targets applications such as DeFi and games, while crypto economics is a blockchain. Since the goal of the former is to get users to take certain actions, we need to know what actions they should take and under what circumstances. The latter's goal is to keep the blockchain running and secure, so you have to be familiar with cryptography and economics. Applications can run without token, but public blockchain cannot run without coins. Because of these conditions, token behavior is more dynamic and coin behavior is more static. In particular, blockchain coin must be designed so that safety and liveness are satisfied. Incentives are also differently oriented. Token economics is supported by positive incentives, while crypto economics has negative incentive as well, in the form of slashing and opportunity cost. Token economics can also have a negative incentive by using penalty when unlocking the tokens, but this is optional. The risk of token economics is more humane, and it is centralization, and that it must continue to make appropriate decisions like a central bank. The risk of crypto economics is the inability to achieve Byzantine fault tolerance. However, with the EVM fork and the Cosmos SDK, it is becoming possible to build blockchains without being expert in cryptography. Yeah. Thank you for your attendance. If you have any questions, please ask me on Telegram group. Thank you. Bye.